Picking up where we left off from our last Humanities lesson, that'll be in Humanities 3. This is our reading for Humanities 4. This is part 2 of our textbook for this week. Prior to this reading, we learned about the steps after the Civil War and what was going on right after the Civil War ended. This section is called Early Plans for Reconstruction. Even before the war ended, President Lincoln worried about rebuilding the South. He wanted to make it fairly easy for Southerners to rejoin the Union. The sooner the nation was reunited, Lincoln believed the faster the South would be able to rebuild. As early as 1863, Lincoln outlined a Reconstruction plan. This is a big glossary term. Reconstruction refers to the rebuilding of the South after the Civil War. Under Lincoln's 10% plan, a Southern state could form a new government after 10% of its voters swore an oath of loyalty to the United States. Once it had formed, the new government had to abolish slavery. Voters could then elect the members of Congress and take part in the national government once again. So remember, in the Civil War, South removes itself from the North. And then the North wins. So now the Southern states are kind of like, what are we going to do? We lost and we did not want to be a part of their government anymore. So the 10% plan says if 10% of your voters swear to join us and be loyal again, then you guys can add your representatives to our government again. Lincoln's plan also offered amnesty or a government pardon. It's like forgiveness to Confederates who swore loyalty to the Union. So he also said, if you come back to the Union and swear loyalty, then we'll forgive any crimes that you did as, fighting against us. Amnesty would not apply to former leaders of the Confederacy, however. So if you fought for the Southern states and pledged loyalty back to the Northern states, we would forgive you. But the leaders could not get this pardon. Many Republicans in Congress felt that Lincoln's plan was too generous toward the South. In 1864, they passed the Wade-Davis bill, a rival plan for Reconstruction. So this is a second idea that they wanted to try. It required a majority of white men in each Southern state to swear loyalty to the Union. So way more than 10%. This is a majority. It also denied the right to vote or hold office to anyone who had volunteered to fight for the Confederacy. So in the 10% plan, you could get forgiven if you fought. In the Wade-Davis plan, you cannot be forgiven. The Freedmen's Bureau. Lincoln refused to sign the Wade-Davis bill because he felt it was too harsh. Congress and the president did agree on one proposal, however. 1 month before Lee surrendered, Congress passed a bill creating the Freedmen's Bureau. Lincoln signed it. The Freedmen's Bureau gave food and clothing to former slaves. It also tried to find jobs for freed men. The Bureau helped poor whites as well. It provided medical care for more than 1 million people. One former Confederate was amazed to see a government which was lately fighting us with fire and sword and shell, now generously feeding our poor and distressed. One of the Bureau's most important tasks was to set up schools for freed slaves in the South. By 1869, about 300,000 African Americans attended Bureau schools. Most of the teachers were volunteers, often women from the North. Both old and young were eager to learn. Grandparents and grandchildren sat side by side in the classroom. One Bureau agent in South Carolina offered that freedmen will starve themselves and go without clothes in order to send their children to school. Charlotte Fortin, an African-American woman from Philadelphia, came south as a volunteer teacher. She wrote of her students, "I never before saw children so eager to learn. It is wonderful how a people who have been so long crushed to earth can have so great a desire for knowledge and such a capacity for attaining it." The Freedmen's Bureau laid the foundation for the South's public school system. It set up more than 4,300 grade schools. It also created colleges for African American students, including Howard, Morehouse, and Fisk. Many graduates of these schools became teachers themselves. By the 1870s, African Americans were teaching in grade schools throughout the South.